Okay, so after you have created your stamp and your stamp has been fired, you are ready to start making your container. So to start, you need to choose your size. I'll have the sizes out so that you can see them, and I'll have the corresponding folders with the sizes. So for this one, I chose the 8x4x6, and each of these have three different envelopes inside of the big envelope. One of them is the front and back, tells you how many to cut. One is the side, and then one will be the bottom. The bottom one I'm going to save for later. I don't need to cut my bottom right now, so I'm going to put that back in here. All I need to cut is the front and back and then the side pieces. So I'm going to take one of the front and back and then one of the side pieces and bring those back to me with my table. And I'm going to hang on to these for a while as I am working on my piece. Adjust my camera here. Okay. So once I have chosen my sizes, I am ready to start cutting out my templates. So I have rolled out some slabs, and I rolled out my slabs by cutting the block of clay vertically. So I took the block of clay, I laid it on the side, and then cut it, sorry, not vertically, while it's on its side, so horizontally, so that I could get a longer slab in hopes to fit as much as possible. But this one's a little bit smaller. I think I'm only going to be able to fit, yeah, one piece on here. So I'm going to take my template. I'm going to trace around it with my needle tool. I'm not going to cut all the way through. I'm just going to trace around just like that. And then I'll take my ruler to make that cut all the way through. And any extra clay I have, I can either put it in the recycling bin or in my container to re-pug for my own clay. And I'm going to set this to the side. Take my other slab that I have. This one I think I'll be able to fit a lot more on. I need to do one more of these because I need a front and a back. And then I need to do two of these. I need to cut one more slab. But I'm going to do the same with my other pieces. I'm going to cut one more of these the same way I did with this. And then I'll cut two sides, 1 and 2, just the same way, tracing around first with my needle tool and then cutting through with my ruler. Okay, so I have all of my pieces cut out, and if this were my stopping point today, I'm just going to show you guys how to wrap these up. So I'm going to take a circle bat and get these out of the way so you can see a little bit better. And on my circle bat, this should be big enough to keep your slabs all together on one. I'm going to put down a dry paper towel first. This will help so that the slabs don't stick to the bat. And then I'm going to put down my 2 slabs first. And then on top of that, I'm going to put some damp paper towels. So this will help keep it soft. And then on top of these, in between the paper towels, I'm going to put my other 2 and cover these. I probably need one more damp paper towel, but I do not have one, so we'll just make that work. And then you would wrap this whole thing inside of your plastic bag. Press out any air and then tuck the edges just like that. So anytime you're wrapping up your slabs, that is how you would do it. You also need to keep your templates with you. So I would just put these in your box or on top of your wrapped up slabs so that you don't lose those. But after you, once you're on to the next step, after you've cut them out, maybe that wasn't your stopping point. Depends when you need to wrap them. But the next step from here is I'm going to start smoothing out my slabs and getting rid of that canvas texture. So you can either use the flat side of your metal rib or you can use your blue rib. Either one will work. And we're just getting rid of this canvas texture from the slab roller. So we have a nice blank canvas to work with our stamps. Then after I've got it smoothed with my rib, you can go ahead and take a damp sponge and further smooth out any lines that you might have. Don't worry so much about the edges. We will be recutting these after we stamp. So if your edges get distorted at all, that's okay at this point. And then you're going to flip it over and do the other side as well. Just like that. Then I would repeat those steps with the rest of my slabs here, smoothing out each one of them. And then you've got some smooth slabs. Now that I've got all of my pieces smoothed, my next step is I need to lay them in order that they'll be assembled. So now is the time where you try to decide if you have one side that looks better than the other, and the side that looks better should be face down at this point, because the way that I lay them now is going to be how this side is going to be the inside. So I'm kind of just looking at both sides, deciding if I have one side that's better than the other, and then laying them out. So I'm going to do, if I think about this folding up, I do a front, side, then back, and then another side. That's the better side. And then my last piece. Just like that. And then from here, I need to number them so that I don't forget what order I put them in. And so that I have them, I can put them back in order when I need to. I'm going to raise this up a little bit so you can see a little bit better. But I've got slab 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now from here, I can go ahead and flip them right side up because now I'm ready to start stamping. So I'm going to flip them all the same way. I went like that, go like this, and then flip my last one. And now I'm ready to start my stamps. Okay, now that I am ready to stamp, I'm going to make sure that these are all laying pretty straight. And you're going to need your stamp and a ruler. And I'm just going to lay my ruler across my slab, just like that. I'm going to slide these down a little bit. Really have to slide them back and forth so that I'm not hanging off the side. When I do my first stamp. Okay, so I'm going to place this, and this ruler is just going to help me keep my stamp in line. I kind of measure how big my stamp is and move my ruler to the correct spot. And I'd say that looks pretty good. So from here, I'm just going to take, oh, you can't quite see it. There we go. So I was just lining up my stamp, moving my ruler as I needed, and now I'm ready to make my first stamp. And when I do my stamp, I'm going to rock my stamp and kind of roll it around so that I make sure I get a good impression, just like that. And then I'm going to go to the next space. Rock and roll. And I'm going to try and keep it as consistent as possible between each stamp. That one was a little close. As I get to the seam here, it's okay if your stamp goes right on to the next slab. And it's okay if your stamp is like right here. If my stamp is cut in half by my slabs, that's okay. I'm just going to keep going. So I'm going to repeat this all the way down. I'm just going to pick up my ruler, move it down, and keep going until I reach the end. And then when I start the second row, I will come back and show you how to do the second row. All right, so I'm on to the second row. I'm just moving my ruler down. I went all the way to the end over there. My last stamp kind of hung off the side a little bit. That is okay. I'm just going to continue on with my second row. Could have maybe lined these up a little bit better. So make sure you're taking your time. And remember, it's okay to go across seams. Then if I were to continue, I'd go all the way down. My third row would start here. And then my fourth row would probably be cut off just a little bit. Just like that. So I'd probably have half a stamp across the bottom there. All right, so I'm going to finish this up, and then I will come back. All right, now that I've got all of my slabs stamped all the way to the end, I am ready to move on to my next step, which is recutting my slabs. So I'm gonna leave these in order, but as I stamp them, it kind of pushes the slab out and makes it so that the edges are a little bit distorted and it's a little bit bigger than when we started. So I'm going to take my templates that I've been hanging on to, and I'm going to line it up with this edge so that I can try to keep my edges where my stamps kind of went on to the next slab. I'm going to try and keep those from getting cut. So I'm going to line this up here so that these two edges can stay the same. It's probably not going to work all the way down, but I'm going to take, oops, sorry, it's supposed to just be tracing. So trace all the way around. Take that off. Lay down your ruler. And then cut off the edges. I'm going to do the same with this one here. Try to line this up with this edge. Trace around. Unfortunately, this side gets cut off, so it won't quite line up perfectly with that side. Oh, sorry. Couldn't quite hold that one in. And then I'm just going to go ahead and continue this with the last two slabs, keeping them in order so I don't, so I can try and get them to line up the best that I can. I'll recut this one and then my other side. All right, so now that I've got them all recut, I'm going to go ahead and flip them back over. So that all of my numbers are down in that right-hand corner again. And my next step is to miter my edges. So I need to measure 1/4 of an inch in on each side where the sides will touch. I need to grab a different ruler actually because mine is worn off. I can't see the 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to be measuring to this line right here. So I'm going to line up my first slab. And remember to do this on the back side, not the side with the stamps. And I'm going to make a little line at the top and bottom where it's 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to do that to the other side of my first slab. And then my second slab, because these two edges will come together. Onto my last slab as well. And some of these numbers have kind of been smushed, or some of them are about to get cut off. So I'm just going to renumber them. So that when I miter my edges, I don't lose my number. I'm going to switch this one over so I have some more space. And I'm going to line my ruler up with those 2 marks that I just made, and then at a 45-degree angle, so not straight on, I'm not cutting this straight, I'm cutting it at a 45-degree angle so that I have a nice edge for my 2 sides to be coming together. Do that on one side. Kind of hard for me to show you here, but I'm cutting at a 45-degree angle on both sides. I can go ahead, switch that one. I'm going to do the same to this one here. Again, remember not to do this on the stamped side. I want this done on the back side. So I'm going to continue to do that to my last 2 slabs. At this point, this would be a good stopping point for me to give my slabs some time to set up. My next step is I'm going to be starting to assemble them together. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to give these overnight to set up a little bit. I'm going to wrap them the same way I did earlier in the video. Dry paper towel down first, 2 slabs on the bottom, wet paper towel on top, 2 slabs on top of that, another wet paper towel bag on top. That will give some time for these to be a little less flimsy so that I can put them together. Make sure you still hang on to those templates. I don't think we'll need them anymore, so you can put them back where they belong. Trying to think if I'm forgetting anything. I don't think so. So I'm going to miter my 2 last pieces, wrap them up, let them sit overnight. They are numbered, so I don't have to worry about putting them in a certain order when I wrap them up. Yeah, I think that's it. I will come back tomorrow to show you the next step. All right, so I am back the next day, and I am ready to start joining my walls. So I'm going to take my pieces out here. And then set this all to the side. Okay. So the first thing I need to do is start to get these in order again. And laying them out in order is the first step to joining them together. So I need to make sure that my numbers are once again in the bottom right-hand corner. And then my 3 and 4, I'm going to kind of put up and off to the side because I won't be working with those ones right now. I'm just going to be working with my first 2 slabs. So I'm going to move those up and out of my way and then just work with slab 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4 are up here. So my first step to joining my pieces is to scratch my 2 mitered edges that are going to go together. So I'm going to actually be placing this one together just like that. So I'm going to be scratching these 2 pieces first. And I'm going to open up my slip here. I just rehydrated this, so let me just see if I have some slip in there ready to go. And then I'm going to add that slip onto my container. This part is probably the most important part of the whole container. A really common mistake that can happen is that your pieces, your walls can fall apart. So making sure that you have plenty of slip in between. You should almost have like a gooey layer in between your walls. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna stand these up. And press them together. Actually, I think I'm going to lay this wall back down. And I'm just pushing on the outside, trying not to disturb my pattern at all. I'm going to lift this back up, and then I'm just going to take my finger and I'm going to pinch along the seam here. Trying not to change my stamp at all. I'm going to take my finger on the outside and I'm just going to smooth it. You can also take your rib, and I'm also going to smooth the top here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Lift this up very carefully. Set it down. And then my next step is I need to roll a small coil. So I'm going to grab some clay. And I'm going to be rolling this coil for the inside of my piece. So I'm going to first shape it. And get some water down on my table. If you have trouble rolling small coils, if they break a lot, water on your table is going to help you a lot. I put a little bit too much, so now my coil is kind of sliding around, but once it dries up a little bit, you shouldn't have that issue anymore. This coil does not have to be perfect. It's simply going to be put into the corner of your piece. All right, so I've got my coil rolled out, and now there should be some slip that's kind of hanging out the side of the seam, kind of hanging out in this corner here. So I'm just going to place my coil up along that seam, and I'm going to use this tool, my wooden modeling tool, and I'm just going to start to push that clay into the corner of my container. So I'm just pushing to get the clay in place. And then I'm going to start to smooth it in there. And then I'm going to start to scrape away any extra clay so that I still have a nice 90-degree angle on the inside. So I'm just scraping along the walls there. And that's going to get rid of any extra clay from that coil. So I'm just starting at the bottom like this, scraping along that corner. I'm going to check out the outside again. It looks like I split a seam out here, so I'm just going to pinch that back together. Make sure you're nice and gentle. That looks pretty good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and show you that one more time with my next slab. So this is slab 1, 2, and now I'm ready for 3. So I'm going to attach this one right here, just like this. So same process, just one of them is upright. I'm going to scratch along this mitered edge, and then I'm going to scratch along this side. Remember, your numbers should be in the lower right hand corner. That's how it goes together. So I'm going to scratch this side right here. Now my slip is starting to get nice and gooey, so take a big piece, or big, what would you say? Take a lot of slip, and I just kind of coat. I use my rib to kind of coat the edge that's going to go together in slip. I want lots of slip on there. All right, so we've got a good amount of slip. We've got our scratch marks, and then I'm just going to put these together and pinch. So I'm pinching on the outside. I'm going to take my rib, smooth out that corner. You can also use your finger. That looks pretty good. And then we're going to take our coil. I just had this one left over from the first one that I did. I'm going to take my tool, push it into the seam. And then start to scrape away any extra. All right, so your next step is to either stop, wrap it up, and let it sit overnight to kind of harden up again, or add on the fourth wall. If it's feeling like it's really wobbly and if you're having a hard time having it hold its structure, you are more than welcome to like attach your first two walls, wrap it up, do your second two walls the next day, or you can, if you feel like your slabs are pretty sturdy, you can go ahead and put all four walls together in one day. It just kind of depends how well your slabs dry and how much they dry. If they're really wobbly, just give it a day, be patient. If they're pretty sturdy, go ahead and add all the walls. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to, I would very carefully pick this up. You might need a friend's help. Put it back on the bat, wrap it up in paper towel, damp paper towel. I would re-dampen these if I needed to. If you feel like it's really wobbly, maybe just reuse your damp paper towels so they're not so wet. And then I would go ahead and cover my whole piece just like that, all on my bat, and then go ahead and wait the next day to add the fourth wall. From here, my next step after I get all four walls attached is my next step is the base. So that is what I will be showing you guys next. All right, so for the next step, we are ready to add on the base or the bottom of our container. So you're gonna need the envelope that looks like this that says bottom on it. This is the template that you'll need. It is a different size from the sides and the front and the back. So make sure you find the envelope in your manila envelope, the same one where you use the templates from, that says bottom. So you'll take one of those, you're gonna roll out a slab, and we are gonna go ahead and trace around. Just like that. Now we're gonna take a ruler and cut that out. Hang on to this extra clay or put it into the recycling bin. And then we're gonna go ahead and smooth out both sides. So I'm just using my blue rib. I'm going to finish smoothing these sides both out, front and back. So I'll flip this over, smooth the other side, and then I will come back to the next step. All right, now that I've got my slab smoothed on both sides, I just need to take my template again and trim off any edges that got distorted. I'd say that looks pretty good. And then I am ready to add my container to it. So I'm going to go ahead and unwrap my container. Take all my paper towels off. And then I'm ready to center my container on my slab. So I don't know, can't tell if you can see. I don't think you can. I'm gonna kind of move my camera a little bit. The base should have a rim just like this around all four sides. So you want to move your container so that all four sides look even and it's centered on your base. And if you need to have your base be your stopping point, like if you cut out your slab or if you roll your slab, make your template for your base, that might be all the time that you have in class. So you can always just wrap it up at that point. Save this for the next day. I'd say that looks pretty even all the way around. So now from here, I'm going to take my needle tool and I'm just going to make a mark. You'll be able to see these marks a little bit better when I take the container back off. But I'm just going to make a mark in each corner of my base so that I know where to scratch to put these together. So now I'm going to take this off very gently, put this back over here. And then you can see this is where the walls of my container are. So now I'm going to take my scoring rib, my serrated rib, and I'm going to connect this line or connect the corners, I should say, all the way around. And then I'm going to move this off to the side or just give myself some space here. I'm going to take my container and here I have to make a decision which side I want to go up. I think I'm going to do this side. We are going to add a rim to this, so it doesn't really matter, I guess. Especially if your stamp has a direction, just put it that way. I'm going to scratch all the way around. And then I need to add slip to both of these. So I'm going to open up my slip container, grab some slip on my rib. I'm going to start to paint that on all four sides of my container. And then I'm also going to do that on my base. So I might use my finger. Okay, so I think my video cut out there, but I just took my container. I'll lift that up for you so you can see. Both sides are slipped and scored, scratch and attach. And I'm going to recenter this back on to my base. And I'm going to start, once I've got it in place, I'm going to start pushing down so that these two come together. I'm going to smooth out my edges here. I know this is kind of tricky for you guys to see, but I'm just smoothing out around the rim here on all four sides. See if I can pick this up. There we go. So you can see I've got my base attached, and it's got a nice edge all the way around. Now I'm going to go on the inside, do the same, kind of collect any of that extra slip. And now I'm ready to roll some coils. So I'm going to roll out some really thin coils the same way that I did for all four of these corners. And then once I've got my coils rolled, I'll come back and show you how to attach them all. All right, I have rolled out 2 really long, small coils. Yours don't have to be quite this long. They can just be the length of your piece. But I'm going to go ahead and start adding my coil to my base. So I'm just going to kind of put it in place with my finger here. And then we'll just break that part off. And then I'm going to take my wooden modeling tool, and same thing that we did with the inside coils, I'm just going to start to press that into place. And if you need to support from the outside, you certainly can. And then I'm just going to scrape away this extra clay. I'm trying not to disturb this edge here. And then I need to scrape away the clay along the top. Or along the side, not the top. Just taking some time here. To smooth out along my stamp so that I try not to disturb my stamp shape as much as possible. Just like that. Then I'm going to go ahead and show you how I do the inside coil. So I'm going to take what's left of this one, and this is kind of tricky for me to show you on camera, but I'm just going to lay it in there and then push it into place wherever it needs to go, or into that corner where it connects. And then once I've got it in the right place, in that seam, I'm going to do the same exact thing. So push it into the corner with my modeling tool. And then sometimes this part's easier to do with your finger, but just getting rid of any extra clay in that corner. Now I can take my modeling tool. I'm just going to scrape along the bottom. Just like that. So now I need to repeat that for all 4 sides. So, oops, I just dropped a bunch of water. I'm going to put a coil around this side, and then this side over here, and then my last corner. Okay, so I have finished putting on my base, and I was trying to pick this up. It's kind of stuck to my... Okay, I would suggest my box is kind of stuck to my bat right here. Make sure when you're leaving it overnight, I did not put a paper towel underneath, so make sure you put a paper towel underneath. But I have finished adding my base, and I put my coils all the way around and all the way around on the inside, and then I let it sit overnight. I put wet paper towels on it. I made the mistake of not putting a dry paper towel underneath, so it kind of stuck onto my bat. But I'll just use a wire tool to get it off, so no big deal. But now I'm ready to add my rim around the top, and that's kind of my last step, is to add a rim that goes all the way around the top to match this rim on the bottom. So to do so, I have a slab here, and I just rolled it out just a second ago, and then I'll have these templates for you that are about that are 1/2 inch thick, and this is what you're going to use to cut out your rim. So I'm just going to place the template on my slab, and I'm going to cut one out, just like that. And then I'm going to cut out a second one for now. I'm just going to do 2 right now. And how I'm going to do this second one, in order to waste the least amount of clay, I'm going to place my template right against that last cut that I just did, just like that. And then I only have to cut once, instead of putting it like in the middle here and then having to cut twice again. I'm going to line it up with that edge. It helps us save clay, and it makes it so that you only have to cut once. So I'm going to cut that through. And then I've got 2 pieces for the first 2 sides of my rim. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to move this slab. Share your slabs with people. If you're cutting your own, or if you're rolling your own slab, there's plenty of clay for like 2, 3, 4, 5 people to use the same slab for their rims. So share that with the people around you. Okay, so I've got my box here, and I'm ready to attach my first rim. Maybe this way will be a little bit easier for you guys to see the whole process. And I'm going to start by scoring and slipping my first 2 sides. So I'm going to do 1 short side, 1 long side. If you've got the box where they're all the same length, just pick 2 of them. And then I'm going to do the same to both of my rims. So we're going to scratch and then add some slip. Okay, now I'm going to take my first one that has slip on it, and I'm just going to lay it on my container here. And I'm going to make sure that this side lines up with the inside of my box, and then this side is going to hang over just a little bit. And then I'm just going to push gently to start to get that attached. And then I'm going to take my other piece and we're going to overlap. I'm going to make sure that the inside lines up with the edge of my slab. And I'm overlapping just like that. Then you're going to take a needle tool or a fettling knife and you're going to make a diagonal cut right at that corner. So I'm going to cut down to my box. Okay, so I'm supporting this underneath here and then blending that seam together with my rib. And I'm going to smooth out this inside for just a second. And then I'm ready to add my coils. So I'm going to take a little bit of clay and I'm going to roll one of those really thin coils that we rolled for the corners and for the base. Don't need quite this much clay. Give myself some space over here. Okay, once I have my coil rolled, then I'm just going to go ahead and I need to put a coil on the inside here as well as underneath where these attach on the outside. So I'll start with the inside. We'll go right here and right where my ram comes together. It's kind of hard for me to see. With my box, that's where I'm going to place it. And then I'm going to use my wooden tool to push it in. And then you can go ahead and use your wooden tool or your rib to smooth away extra clay. Make sure you support on the outside. Make sure you don't cut this off quite yet because you'll need to do the other side. Alright, I think that looks pretty good. And now I'm going to go ahead and take pieces of that same coil that I just used and I'm going to start attaching them underneath this wall here. I'm kind of just taking pieces that I broke off from my other small coil and putting them together. Alright, now I'm going to take my wooden tool and I'm just pressing this into that seam. And then I'm using my wooden tool and I'm just going to scrape away any extra clay. And then scrape along the bottom as well. All right, now I'm going to repeat that. I'm going to put a small coil on the inside here, a small coil underneath. Then I'm going to put my last two sides on, put coils on both sides, repeat that process, and then I'll come back once all of my rim pieces are attached and have coils around them. Okay, so I've got all four sides of my rim attached. If you need to stop in between, add like two sides one day and then two sides the next day, that's totally fine. Just make sure you wrap it with damp paper towel. But once you have all four of your sides complete, you're just going to start smoothing out that canvas texture from the slab and then smoothing out the sides as well. I would also suggest taking a damp sponge to smooth out some of those edges. And then you can also smooth out underneath if there's any canvas texture left under your piece. If there are any spots that look uneven, just take away some of that clay. Make sure you're supporting the rim through this process so that it doesn't start to bend down in the corners too much. See you later. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is smooth out that inside. At this point, you can go ahead and put your name on the bottom if you'd like. These are kind of hard to mess up, or mix up, I should say, because they're all going to look different with your stamps, but you are welcome to add your name and the year if you wanted to the bottom. And then I would say let this dry slowly for a few days with a bag on top. We want all of these pieces to kind of dry slowly together because you did a lot of attaching. So things can easily crack apart if it dries too quickly. So I'd say put a bag over it, let it dry slowly for a few days. Be careful with these corners when it's bone dry. If they get bumped, they can easily crack off. If it dries too fast, these corners can split apart. So make sure throughout this whole process you're scratching and attaching really well, and then letting it dry slowly. And there you have it, your container.